Hey, good morning, everyone. Very early morning if you're on the West Coast, or very early evening if you're somewhere overseas, perhaps. Depends on where you are. We've got people all over the world who contribute on this project. This is the HTBox AllReady community stand-up. We do it every couple of weeks. We're going to do a little bit more of an intro kind of thing this week. We've got some great announcements, so we just want to get everybody up to speed on that. First of all, if you have not joined one of our projects before, or one of our stand-ups before, or you're not quite familiar with the project, AllReady is about disaster preparedness. So it's not the glamorous post-disaster news coverage type things that you see. It's actually to help people prevent that news coverage from ever having to happen. In the event that disaster strikes, you're already ready to go and kind of take care of things when an emergency arises. And this project focuses on helping organizations like the Red Cross to establish patterns and practices and coordinate volunteers so that we can alleviate disaster before it happens. Now, this is actually a different kind of open source project, whereas a lot of open source projects focus on developing something in the name of technology, a library that helps other developers. These are very good things, and that's a very important part of the open source community. This one actually has a focus on humanitarian efforts. And so as part of the HTBox platform or suite of software applications, AllReady is one that is well established and is kind of out there in the community. Today, I'm super excited to have John Galloway here on the call. And John, you are, I know it's really early. I hope breakfast was okay.
It's not that early, but I stay up super late sometimes. And I stayed up super late last night and poking around, I'm like, oh, this is tomorrow morning. All right. Yeah.
So John Galloway is obviously with the .NET Foundation, and there's an event going on right now, and we're super excited to be part of it. Can you kind of just run us through that, John?
Sure. So the event you're talking about is the .NET Summer Hackfest. And the idea with that is it's run from July 24th through September 1st. So that's a 6-week chunk of time. And we broke that up into 2-week sessions. And so the goal of each session is a 2-week sprint, and it's focused on during each of those 2 weeks, we have a group of projects hosting a community hackfest. So and I heard you mention before, CodeFest is what you've called these too. So, but the idea is this is 2 weeks. It is hosted by an established open source project, but the idea is welcoming some newcomers to the project and saying, here are some issues, here's some things we could work on during this time. Come work with us, let's work together, get some stuff done. And the goals of this are, a few things. One, hey, let's help out some projects, let's get, build some things together, that's always good. Two is to, bring some new people into working on some new things, working on open source, maybe in a way they haven't before, working with some new technologies that maybe their work or day-to-day life doesn't normally put them in contact with. Maybe you're you're working on line of business desktop apps and you never get to work with the new bits and you never get to work with whatever it is. This is a great chance to dig into that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually kind of glad you pointed out the difference there. It's not really a difference. We have a terminology that we like to say with HTBox that we do codeathons instead of hackathons, because we want people to know that these the projects that we work on they're serious projects, and yeah, we approach them, and I mean, as are all of the ones that are involved in the Hackfest. We like to try and differentiate so that people just pause to think about what that actually means. Just that there's architecture and patterns in place, and it's being maintained and managed, and this is actually production code. This is being used by the American Red Cross already. So, yeah, but we are so thankful that you have brought us on and into this exposure and helping to kind of spread the reach of who can be involved in this project. And as you said, there's just a lot of great opportunity to dive into some code that you maybe don't get to do on a regular basis.
Yeah, it is great that when I was first putting this together, the first thought on my mind was, well, I have to work with Humanitarian Toolbox, because I've been involved in too many of these things where it's like, hey, let's throw a bunch of code together, and it doesn't really work, and it's not maintained, and it never really ships, or it's kind of you've gone through the motions and you've done some work, but you haven't really built anything of tremendous value, right? And so the goal with this really is to work with projects that are established in building and maintaining, real code, like you said, production code. This is so that's kind of a goal there, is to really, in working with the different projects, and especially, as I said, your project, the goal was really to like get people in and do something lasting.
Absolutely. So if you do decide to join in with the AllReady projects during the Hackfest, you are not going to be alone. We actually have over 100, I believe over 130 contributors on the project now that have contributed through codeathons over the last 2 years. And we've got people from just dozens of countries. We've had dozens of codeathons. We've been at major conferences around the world. We've been at user groups in small towns in Canada. Maybe, I might have had something to do with that, being in Canada, but things like that. The project is on GitHub. So I'm just going to share my screen really quickly here, and we can dive in. The project's on GitHub. We're at HTBox Whack AllReady. You can see here there's 200 issues that we've got open right now. Now, the majority of these have been put in by, as I said before, we've got a production installment. So we've got the American Red Cross that has used this on a couple of deployments where they've been doing some of their work in the United States. And so we get feedback from users. We have having over 100 contributors. They fire stuff up and they see things that happen in different cultures, those kinds of things. Other people try and join, and they might be a little bit not quite confident in how they proceed. So they add an issue and say, hey, what do you mean by this? Or what is this purpose of this function? So there's a myriad of issues in there. You can see there's over 800 that are closed already. And if you have a look at if you dive into it, there's stuff that is, we've got tags up for grabs. We've got all kinds of, if you want to do some design stuff, there's that. There's some CSS. There's HTML stuff that you can do if you're comfortable working in Razor views. It's an MVC project, but we've also got some cloud work as well. And we do a little bit of distributed work in there, fanning out workloads and things like that. We're moving to Azure Functions, those kinds of things. As I said, we've got a project set up for the .NET Summer Hackfest. So you can dive in here and check out any of the items that we've got ticketed in the to-do list. So we are, we've got 20 that are specifically marked for the project, but you can also just go and grab anything that's in the up for grabs or claim any other issue. Just say mine, and we will assign it to you, and away we go. And as I said, you're not going to be alone. We do have there's regular commits on this project. There are regular contributors. Steve Gordon, who's one of the major contributors on the project, he's with us today as well. And I'm going to stop screen sharing here and kind of pass the mic over to Steve in a second. When you contribute to AllReady, we do have a bit of a workflow. We want you to fork the project. Then you're going to create a new branch. You're going to do your work. You're going to create a pull request. We're going to review it, and we're going to be honest with you. We're going to be open. Don't be afraid. We're just completely open to any level of developer who wants to make a contribution, and we're going to walk you through what it takes. We have guides for how to rebase your code if that sounds foreign to you. We even have a primer on working with Git and the AllReady project, and GitHub, and that'll walk you through how to do a pull request. And we've got people like Steve over in the European time zones. I cover off North American time zones, so we've got pretty good global coverage for answering questions online as well. And then when you submit your pull request, we have an automated build process that kicks off using AppVeyor, and that will tell us right away whether or not all the tests are passing after you've made your changes. So you can run those tests locally. I think we've got close to 2,000 unit tests on the project. So you can have those run locally. They run very fast, under a minute, because they are true unit tests. They're not integration tests. And you can have a really good level of confidence that we're not going to merge in something that doesn't fall in line with how we're trying to approach the project in general. Now, one other, we're super geeked about this, the Hackfest that we're being able to take a part of here. But we've also got another really great announcement that I want Steve to hand over. As John said, if you're interested in working in the new bits, then this might be the opportunity. Steve, can you let us know about some of the work that you've been doing this last couple of weeks?
Yeah, sure. So I clearly like pain, and I decided to upgrade the project to 2.0, .NET Core 2.0, ASP.NET Core 2.0, and see how that process went on a full sort of real world project. And actually, it wasn't too bad. So we sort of followed the guided steps. So there's a migration document from sort of the ASP.NET team for taking your project from core 1.0 or 1.1 and updating all of the sort of breaking changes in your project to work with 2.0. So the main stuff there is around authorization and the identity components. So we had to do a few bits and pieces to change how we're registering those. We've also sort of done the cleanup to the startup projects and the program CS. That's all sort of been sort of tidied up a bit in core 2.0. So we've been able to take advantage of that, change some of our dependencies. At the same time, we've been able to kind of move off of some RTM, pre-RTM changes for those dependencies. So we were working with quite old bits in some cases, because when we started this project, I think we were very early betas of ASP.NET.
Yeah, we went through 4, 5, 6, and then the set of RCs. I don't know where they're like 18 RCs or something. I don't remember. John, you can help us with that.
Yeah, I've been through the pain too. But it's great for people that are getting into them. Then they say that the project, it really does simplify like your project file for one thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's got a lot smaller. I think it'll be a lot easier to keep up to date with the iterative versions as well, rather than having to update about 20 dependencies. So that'll be good. The biggest issue we ran into actually with this was a breaking change in EF core. So because of changes to optimize how joins are done in EF core, we were kind of relying on a kind of a bad behavior, I think, of EF core 1.0 for our unit tests, where we build up an in-memory provider and set up a set of sort of test data objects, and then test that our handlers are doing the right thing with the queries. And that is now correctly not returning things if you haven't got required navigational properties set for those items. And that broke about 50 unit tests, I think. So I've gone through, we've updated those so that those now seed the data correctly for the unit tests. And that's just something to be aware of if you're doing any in-memory based testing on the project. And then the final change, I think, was the upgrade to the latest version of mock, which we use for mocking in our unit tests. That also broke a bunch of things. Because there's some API changes there, so we've had to just tweak a few more tests. But I think, touch wood, and James hit the button earlier, this is now merged in and working, and I see that it's up on the AllReady test site as well, so I think we are in a good place.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out too. I'm going to add the public test area. We have automatic deployment set up on Azure so that when commits are made and merged in, you can immediately see that running out in the cloud. And we do. It is an exciting project for that reason, that there's actual testers and users out there that are pushing buttons and making things happen. And so you can take part in that as well. I just want to give a huge shout out to Steve. The work you did. I know it was hours and hours, and it looks like there's over 40 commits in that branch. So there's a significant amount of work there, and you really pulled through on that. So a huge props out to you, man.
No problem.
Hey, we have about 2 weeks on this project, on this Hackfest. Is that right, John? So,
but then the goal too, of course, is after the 2 weeks are over, people are welcome, hopefully, to stay on. It's once you've done the work of getting up to speed, now's a good time to continue working when you can. So.
Absolutely, we welcome regular contributors. It's a wonderful thing when we go through an event and we get 1 or 2 or 3 people who come and follow through with pull requests in the weeks that follow, and then we're fortunate enough to get people like Steve who join in, and 2 years later they're still slogging code, and that's just a wonderful thing to have. And any open source project is really appreciative of that. I'm actually involved in a couple of other open source projects, and I know that when we see those commits come in, it makes your day, because it's taking care of something that you couldn't do on your own. And that's part of the beauty of how open source works. And in a project like this, where there's a humanitarian, human-to-human thing where we can actually help other people, it is truly amazing. I'm going to share a quick story before we wrap up here. In the current campaign that the Red Cross is running in the United States has to do with the installation of smoke detectors. And they've actually got multiple instances now where they've recorded that as a result of installing smoke detectors, someone has gotten out of a house alive. No smoke inhalation damage, no medical things. They've gotten out of the house alive when their house is burnt down. And that's because a smoke detector was installed in a home where it wasn't before. And that kind of change, to be able to do that through writing software, is just a really cool way to be able to give back to the community. We are, as software developers, we are equipped with modern tools. It's not hammers and screwdrivers and things like that. We get keyboards and mice and source code competencies, and this is just an awesome way to be able to contribute. So I hope that if you are watching this out here, or you catch it afterwards on YouTube, that you just consider joining HTBox and the AllReady project and getting some pull requests in for the summer Hackfest with the .NET Foundation. John, any closing words?
Just really happy to be working with you on this. I'm personally hoping to get in a pull request or two during this. So,
right on. That would be great. And Steve, from your end?
Not really. No. Just if anyone notices any core 2.0 problems and you're not sure what to do, get in touch with me through GitHub, and I'll take a look.
Awesome. Okay, thanks everybody for tuning in this week, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. And meanwhile, just catch us on Twitter or on GitHub, and please take part in the summer Hackfest. Cheers.